What are the characteristics? What are the traits of the agents that you're looking to add to your team?
We have a whole combination of everything. But in my journeys, I realized that there's a lot of small teams out there too that are having issues scaling and realizing that, hey, maybe they should just go, make their 600 grand a year selling and let somebody else train their agents. But what we look for is the
world-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%. Empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Light It Up Podcast. Our goal, of course, is to empower agents to think bigger and create a life by design. Today, we have a very, very special guest, Brett Sikora from the Sikora Group. Last year, Brett's team did over $208 million in overall volume with 40 agents on the team. Thanks so much for being here, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're excited to spend some time with you today. I always laugh when people will give you heat or give you shit for having somebody else in your market on, and they're like, why would you collaborate with somebody else that's in your market? But collaboration is obviously a huge part of this business and part of the reason we went over to EXP. And I think you would agree. We can all share ideas. Doesn't necessarily, mean if I do a deal, I'm taking business away from you, right? And vice versa.
100%. There's plenty of opportunity on that side of things. There's plenty to go around, and there's so many agents that need help. And that's like what you and that's what we're all doing, is we're just trying to elevate the game of people around us. And I feel like if people don't want to plug into that, then that's totally fine. But that's the scarcity mindset. I mean, I was telling you, my lunch prior to this was with Matthew Roack, who's also in another market we service, $200+ million team. And we're just masterminding. We're just doing this. We're trying to figure out how do we all stay ahead of the curve. And it's fun. It's a fun thing to be doing.
Yeah.
So
out of all the people in our marketplace that John wanted to invite to the show, I'd probably say, oh, hell no, you're crazy for wanting to invite this person. But when he said, hey, I want to bring in Brett, although I've never had like a one-on-one solo conversation with you, you were very genuine and you've always directed people in the right way. So excited for the conversation we'll have and see where this goes.
100%, man.
We're letting them off easy with these. What mistake do you keep making over and over again?
Me personally, I would say low income activities in my schedule. I get pulled into the weeds of things that I shouldn't be in. I don't trust the process around the systems and whatnot that I've spent so many years building. Mm-hmm. I do a really good job of staying at a lot of high level activities, but I still do find myself. And what's interesting about that is regardless of where you're at as an agent or anybody in any professional career, that's always a battle that doesn't seem to go away. So just creating awareness around that.
Nice.
Yep.
So during your real estate career, what is your most powerful and vivid memory when you had a breakthrough in the business?
For me personally, it was in 2015. I was on another team. I broke off. And you guys know, you're Mike Ferry based agents. I was Mike Ferry too. I'd kind of come from that whole, I'd started, John and we know each other since, 2008. I still have him in my phone as Halliburton John.
I still got you as Gotham.
Yeah, there's two companies that one still exists and the other one just actually doesn't exist, but So no, Halliburton John, I mean, we were Mike Ferry based agents. So I had done that till 2015 and was on another team and was always focusing on the FISBOs and all that stuff. And until I met Matthew Ferry, who you guys had on your podcast, I should say I knew him, but until I started coaching one-on-one with him, and it was the most expensive coach I'd ever hired, he really taught me how to embrace like what my superpower was, which was really connecting deeply with people. So the cold call to me never felt like a cold call anymore. It felt like I have a mission to help people from a consultative approach. And that allowed me to reprogram myself in a way where the conversations became so much deeper. And that's now is like what I do with agents as well. I mean, it's, as you got, John, you and I have spoken so many times. I just actually wanted to help people. And Matthew taught me that the universe reciprocates in a way that isn't necessarily one-to-one. It doesn't have to come back to you from the person that you're helping.
I love that. That's good.
All right. What is your worst habit?
Oh, I would say drinking. Yeah, sure. No, I would say, like personal health and stuff like that. I can certainly be better. I have 2 kids under 2 right now. So that, anybody who has kids or, has babies, I should say, they're only 13 months apart. So it was baby, boom, right back into baby. And that's my excuse today for not being in great shape and drinking more than I should be drinking. But personal health is is something that I'd like better habits around.
Nice. All right. If you could have dinner with one or two people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I would go with like an Abraham Lincoln or something like that, or like a founding father. I think that Benjamin Franklin, like they were so ahead of their time when you really think about it. Or if you think about like Think and Grow Rich and Carnegie and all, like one of those guys. I know I'm picking them all. Anybody in Think and Grow Rich, I want to have dinner with. No, I just really, it blows my mind when you look back at that and see like the foresight that they had to write the Declaration of Independence and that sort of thing. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah. It's always an interesting thing to think about when you're looking at like the fathers of industrial, like everybody who was in.
You got his attention now. This
Think
kid
and Grow
could talk
Rich.
about Carnegie and Vanderbilt and
It blows my mind.
Rockefeller's my boy, which is good. But yeah, it tells you a lot. So it's interesting. So you guys, you've always come up in conversation every once in a while, Brett. And I know you, John, and Ed Verdell, you guys all somewhat started right around the same time, right? And you guys were all in that Hoboken market, like the three young guys all together. Now you guys are all three old people. Just kidding. Looking back, so from independent agent, what year did you transition into trying to build a team?
So that was 2015. So I was on another team, broke off from that team, and then December of 2015 was when I created the Sikora Group LLC. And then my first agent I brought on was Eric Goldfarb in February of 2016. So that was it. It was sort of growing the team in the beginning of 2016.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you came on, I was just remembering one of the Mike Ferry workshops I went to in Miami. I met Eric and I met Dan for the first time ever. And they were like, oh yeah, you come to this Mike Ferry stuff, whatever. And Ira Nadage was teaching it, and it was a fun as hell event. But the way that they were sharing or talking to each other was like they were brothers. I didn't know that they were just, colleagues or essentially working together. But they had just like these bro vibes where they were just like, you feel like they knew each other for a long, long time. And when they were talking about the culture, they were like, yeah, we do these things where we're like all around each other, prospecting all together, this and the other. We have the systems where it's like a hoorah vibe with everybody in there. And a lot of people that we spoke to, and I'm sorry that I'm long-winded with this, but it goes to a good question. When we speak to big team leaders like Josh Barker and people like that, they say the culture and building of the culture starts from like the day one, like with the first hire that you have, and it grows from there. And then once it grows, it takes a life of its own. How were you intentional about creating that culture with your first hire like Eric?
So I like to think in my head that I'm not that old. But so what's funny is that was our culture. We were a prospecting based culture. We were, I was 27 at the time and I lived in Hoboken. So we definitely had, we had some fun back then, but these guys were like 22, but I was through my 20s. I was making good money. And I knew that was everything. So what I'll say, and John can probably attest to this, is I learned about culture back in 2008. Gotham Realty was a shit show of a brokerage. And we had some damn good agents that came out of that, though. Andrew Sanderson, Dave DeVoe, Kyle Claus, Steve Rosado, Jimmy Ciros. We had a lot of fun there. And that's when I realized like the experience that you have within the workplace will trump anything that, goes on outside of that. So I was on the DeVoe group for a little bit. We worked at Liberty Realty. Shout out to Liberty Realty too. They do a fantastic job of like creating that family feel culturally at a 300 plus agent count. I don't know their actual count today, but just, guessing. And that has that family thing. So I realized that was super important. And what I went in heavy on was knowing that, hey, I'm a Hoboken guy. I like to drink beer. I think I was single at the time, or I just met my wife or something. We went heavy on like the frat house kind of thing. So we actually had a John Belushi poster in the office from Animal House. We have kegerators. We had booze in the office. We would do whiskey Fridays. Cheers. I'm still doing them apparently. But at 3:00 on Fridays, we'd open up the bottle of whiskey and we'd be prospecting with the whiskey. So that's kind of where it started to go into what you experienced when you saw those guys. They're screwing around, but like what's fun about, and I don't know where it's going to share, but what's fun about like those guys is, Eric Goldfarb hit $1 million net worth at 29 years old.
Yeah.
Dan Spitz was like netting over $600,000, $700,000 at 27 years old. Like these guys are still in there. Goldfarb just turned 30. So like my whole mission was to make sure that they didn't screw off as much as I did through my 20s in the Gotham Realty days. What I started to grow into, like, have an issue with is I was very male driven though at that point. So I had to start opening that up into, you know, the female component. Even hiring staff, we had to be careful because it was kind of, you know, more of a locker room feel. And you had to start kind of transitioning from that. So I would say that that's where we started with it. And then where I had the issue, I want to say culturally, is when I was kind of going from like 8 to like 18 agents was where it started to be like, ooh, we're changing from that small team, and how do I keep that small feel? And then we came back to it.
So what was the struggle at that point? And I guess, well, let's just say this. Were you at EXP when you were growing from 8 to 18?
No, I was at KW the year prior. When I moved to EXP, my agent count was 13. So it was kind of like right in that with switching brokerages and stuff like that. I would say at KW too, it's even like 5 to 20. Let's widen it out, because I made mistakes too with it culturally there. And what I realized is that I wasn't blowing out my culture because I was growing. I was blowing out my culture because I was hiring the wrong people. And I had to get rid of those people really quickly. And I was not as good at getting rid of them back then because growth was so important to me that I was just bringing everybody into the organization and thinking that they were going to sell homes. So one of the things that always stuck with me with Diane Kokosko at Keller Williams, she was one of the head of MAPS coaching at the time, was that a racehorse will never be a donkey and a donkey will never be a racehorse. And I always thought of that as like, why am I trying to make donkeys racehorses? And it's making, you know, it's bringing down the quality of the racehorse within the organization. It's kind of pulling them down. So you could have 300 racehorses in the same ring, and they're all going to have fun together because they're all just pushing the envelope. And that's kind of like what you guys are experiencing, what we're doing with the generals and stuff like that here, you know, in our private group at EXP. We're all just sharing and having fun because we're all wildly different people, but culturally we align because we hammer down on the accelerator.
So what is the ideal agent that when you're trying to build your team? Right now you have 40 agents on the team?
Yeah, like 42. Yeah.
And is there a goal this year to get that to 50, 60?
Right now, my goal, so we have 23 agents on our team are in 6 figures and up. My goal by the end of 2025, so I have a little over 3 years, is to have 300 agents, 6 figures and up. So that's kind of where I'm more focused on that versus, you know, where I need to be every single day kind of thing, agent count, and just pushing towards that.
Right. What are the characteristics? What are the traits of the agents that you're looking to add to your team? Like, are you looking for brand new people? Or are you looking for people with a little bit of, they've done 5 deals and you can get them from 5 to 25? What's it look like?
We have a whole combination of everything. I mean, prior to COVID kind of hitting, we took pride in taking brand new agents, being able to get them in producing like all heck in a short amount of time. And we have a good track record with that. But in my journeys, I realized that there's a lot of, you know, small teams out there too that are having issues scaling and realizing that, hey, maybe they should just go, you know, make their $600,000 a year selling and let somebody else train their agents. So my sweet spot's that. And then also where I've put a lot more attention since November is the agents that are selling 10 homes or more per year. And you'll see like my social media is starting to come out with content around that because I'm seeing them, they haven't been through a slower market and they didn't come from a Mike Ferry background and they don't know how to snap their fingers and produce income and they're panicking. So we have a solution for that. And then that also for us avoids the whole ramp up period of what we need to go through for a brand new agent with that 90-day onboarding and then getting them selling. And maybe their first closing won't happen, you know, till 4 or 5 months. It kind of comes right in and they start running. So those are like kind of the 2 that we focus on, and then we'll still take the new agent. We're never going to turn somebody down that's talented, but what we look for is the coachability. So I purposely try to, I don't want to say go at them, but I try to be very upfront about what is going to be required of them being on the team. Like John, I know you and KIRO too. I mean, you guys are both beast prospectors. So like if I just said, listen, guys, happy to have you as a part of my organization, but I want you to know that every single day we're going to prospect. We're going to make 20 contacts. You're going to turn in your call-in sheet. I think of it as more of a warm call, but it's for sale by owners. It's expireds. It's people within our database, older leads. It's people that need help in the world of real estate. And if I see that they don't bat an eye and they're just like, cool. it's like as simple as that. Like, I feel like, okay, great, we can get this going. And I'll make it sound worse than that. But if I do see them start to shudder or something, not a thought for us. The other thing too that I don't even get into is if splits and commission and stuff like that become a concern, because they're so worried about what they're going to get paid on each transaction. I want people worried about being millionaires at 29 years old. Like, I want that. And that's what we look for. So when the two of those combine, that's where the gold is at. And there's nobody on my team that will ever have an issue with somebody of that caliber coming into our world, whether they're a brand new agent or an agent that's already done 30 million.
Yeah, no, that's good. A lot of times they say go through core values to pick the people that you pick into your tribe, and so that they have the same vibe. Is that something that you go through too, or is it just coachability is the main thing that you look for?
Well, I'm cut from Matthew Ferry too, and I don't know how much you guys geeked out together, but we're big on like muscle testing and all that stuff too. So I can literally tell, like I can like gut check it. I can make a pretty quick decision on whether or not I think somebody's going to be, that person, for it. And Alex Andrew too is another coach that we work with. You guys should get him on if you haven't had him on yet. I can connect you with him. But he too, he's like just very good. Actually, John, you met Alex.
Oh, I forgot his name for a second. Yeah, Brett did an event in Hoboken, and he was nice enough to bring on one of his coaches who really teaches you on, and KIRO's going to love this, on like the DISC assessment, right? And how to hire. So I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, it's youdon'tknowdisc.com, and his whole thing is like the way that you're reading DISC is completely wrong. The way that DISC is taught is completely wrong, which is a whole other, story around that. But point being is like I don't know if he analyzed you when you were in the crowd or if he did anything with you, but he's taught me how to read people like that. So I just know through studying and doing, all of his courses and working with Matthew Ferry for so many years that, KIRO, to answer your question, I'll know if they're going to align with my core values or not, literally based on body language, based on conversations that I'm asking and seeing how they're reacting to certain things. So, but yeah, if you go into we're pretty simple. I mean, it's like, don't ever try to steal the shirt off someone else's back, whether it's a client, someone in the organization. Don't ever even think about talking in a negative way to anybody at all. Yeah. And be coachable. And for us, coachable, I don't care if you sell 12 homes a year. I don't care if you sell 60 homes a year. I want the agent that is going to be resourceful, within the resources that are around them, take in the information and then take action based on that. So for me, coachability is just literally like having integrity around doing what you already want to do in this business. I tell people, go back to the moment when you swiped your credit card and wanted to get your real estate license. Nobody swipes it in that moment thinking they're going to make $36,000 a year and live in poverty owing the IRS money. You have the vision of freedom. You have the vision of $300,000, $3 million, like the millionaire real estate agent. Like, that's what you're thinking when you're swiping that credit card. You're going to be the best real estate investor. You're going to be flipping real estate, this, that, and the other thing. So we try to get them to live in that and then move towards that every single day.
I like to think that I had that skill. We've hired and fired so many people, and to the point where I remember this one girl, she's like, I just love people. And she got fired after maybe 2 days, where I called down. I was like, you better tell this girl never to come back. He's like, I got you. But we were both we had this mentality after a couple of mistakes. We're like, if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no. And we looked at each other at the end of that meeting with her. We're like, yeah, she's a hell yeah. And then 2 days later, we're like, she was a hell no. Like, what the hell were we thinking? What are some of the pointers, I guess, to tell, and maybe this is going a little off topic, but I think it's important to understand what are some indicators from body language or from speaking to someone that you can tell they'll culturally align with your values in a team? Or is it something that you have to actually experience and learn? It's not something you can share and explain.
So with Matthew, for instance, I never went into any of his muscle testing courses. I was always able to feel and experience things in a good way. So I will say, and the reason why Alex came to that versus me, I never cared to learn how to teach or anything around it. I was more of a student in regards to that. And then where I spend my time is in sales processes and getting agents, to do what they're supposed to be doing. So I will say I'm not 100% clear on how to teach or give pointers on that. But what I would ask is, when she became the hell no, what triggered the hell no? And were there warning signs before that you missed because of her high I in her DISC profile that made you instantly connect and build rapport?
So the DISC personality test, I know what each one means, but based off of personality style, that's what amiable, expressive, driver, analytical. We were always taught that amiables would be really good salespeople because they care about the process. The girl was just too scared to do anything. So her fear of failure just actually made her fail in general. And she seemed like a really good girl, this, that, and the other. And we said, hey, we're going to teach you everything from scratch. So forget everything you learned from the past. And then she came in there, and then we would be coaching. John and I would be spending an hour in the morning going through systems, processes, scripts. And she'd be like, my old team, we used to do the LP Mama. And we were like, shut up. And then, and it was just like, it was frustrating because she was trying to share things just to share things because she wanted to help. But it was completely what we didn't want. That was the red flags that came up right after. Her coming from a place of wanting to help, contribution, but it was completely wrong information that she was sharing with the team.
Yeah, and I think that too is like, again, that's on Alex's test too. It goes beyond disc. It goes to the DEX aspect of things, and there's a high theoretical component too, which means that like they often consume information just to consume information, and then also too, it's like she's hiding behind that in order to not take action. So if we're going back to, I'm going to throw things out in that interview process to see if she shakes at the idea of prospecting all day. I mean, you can literally. I invite people in to go meet with Eric Eckhart in the office and go sit next to him and see what his day looks like so that they can experience it before they make that decision. Smart. It's a little more than like gut, but I'm putting them through like things and seeing where do they, like, are you 2 minutes late to my interview?
Yeah.
That annoys the shit out. You better have a really good reason for that, because that's the beginning of like a problem if they don't plan ahead, in the right way. And that too is something that's come back to bite me. So a lot of little things like measurables around that. There's non-negotiables. I used to be pretty hard where I'd be like, all right, cool. You missed the interview. We're not even talking. I'll reschedule. I'll give them a second shot at this point, but they have an uphill battle from that if they do little things like that. So yeah, I would just come in with us, come prospect with us. I want you to see what it looks like. Here's your headset. You want the person that's going to be scared. You're going to be scared. It's absolutely, it's 1,000% true. Yeah. But they'll sit there and they'll move through their fear. I mean, to go back to old books, I forget who, I don't know if it was Mark Twain or whatever. It was one of those older guys, but he was saying, do something every day that makes you uncomfortable. And that's exactly what you really want to be looking at. My whole thing is, if you create discomfort long enough, you don't feel discomfort anymore. Yeah. Like, you guys don't think about it when you're throwing your headsets on anymore and hitting the phones in the morning because it's just what you do.
Yeah, I was going to say. We used to have to take a shot before, or I would at least take 2 or 3 shots before the first few episodes, because I was like, oh man, I don't want to screw up that intro, or I got to make sure all my questions are jotted down and written out, and everything's mapped out, and we got to make sure we do it this way. And of course, because it was uncomfortable, and now it's a hell of a lot more comfortable. But now you have to do something else that feels uncomfortable. Yeah. So.
But one thing you were saying earlier, even, it was, one of the things that you do mistakes, or the mistake you keep repeating, is focusing on lower income activities. One of the things that drove us crazy was having to train an agent instead of creating those systems that we learned that would help them understand part of the process that we can automate and get off our hands, like a LMS system and stuff like that. How did you handle that discrepancy from getting out of personal production and focusing on building these 2 guys that came on, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I left production when my son came. It'll be 2 years, March 19th. So nice. It's not easy. It's you have to put the time that you put into with scripts, with role play, with all of that stuff into systems and processes. And, I was on Trainual, was what, John, I want to say I've given you the login info for it at one point in time, but I was on Trainual for a long period of time. And then we realized that it was too text heavy and that a video component would be better. And now we have Chat GPT with, creating some content in there as a filler. And then it's very interesting, like how much it's evolved over time. And what's great for us with the AI component is normally I'd go shoot, and you guys, you're sitting in a studio right now, you know what it costs to go into scenarios like that. And we would shoot video for our new Thinkific that we were using and try to make the agent experience better. And then we realized we had to go back, hire that videographer again, try to go back into that same studio we're in, shoot it with the same lighting so that it flows with everything. And then that's when we realized that Synthesia, is just much better for that, because if we're tweaking stats or data to be relevant, we just go back in and retype a little thing here and there, and then the new video gets spit out and it goes into our training. So from the onboarding process and bringing people through the organization, every agent, regardless of what level they're at, we do bring them through because we want them to understand where everything is. We might go a little faster with certain people, but we've gone from like more of a hell week through Trainual, where you consume all the information and then we start picking you up from there, to more of a, we're going to hold your hand a little bit more with daily accountability as you're learning a little bit at a time, and then get you out of it and up and running, after 3 or 4 weeks. So, but yeah, to kind of, answer that question, that the only shift is that you just have to become masterful at a completely new world. Yeah. And what we're doing right now with, we have a performance coach in too. It's a lot of like cool things have been happening recently. We've got a lot more corporate with the trainings and the processes that we're using around things. So that's kind of where my journey's gone from leaving production. It's I'm less focused on what a condo's worth in Hoboken, for instance, and more focused on how to get an agent to earn $100,000 a year in the least amount of time and get my percentages up as high as possible. It's the same thing. It's like I'm collecting data to work on conversion. It's just my client became the agent.
When you were just starting in 2016, 2017, how was it when, like, the training, when you have such a small, tight-knit team and you don't have those systems and processes, like, that's the most painful part, I can imagine, in trying to actually build out so you can actually focus on your production while you're building out the team simultaneously. How did you break through that?
Yeah, that was really hard. That was hard for 2 years or so. Those were 70-hour weeks. Those were really, not doing much on the vacation front or anything like that. Summer of 2017, I was married too, and I took a full, I want to say 3 weeks for my honeymoon, and, took off, cell phone off, everything was shut down. So that was like kind of my push. It was like 2016 to that was when I was trying to get to the point where I could kind of disconnect and not be bothered by, by the team. But no, it's hard work. And I think, and you guys know that, it's like, that's the separation. I'll outwork anybody. I'll put the hours in. People don't understand that, like, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning to go finish tax return shit after being out to dinner with my wife the night before, and then going off to showings all day and still fielding questions from the team the whole time, coming back home, trying to go back out to dinner. And like, it's crazy. I feel like if you're not waking up at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday to do entrepreneurial crap when the world is quiet, then you're not really pushing the envelope hard enough. But yeah, it's 70, 80-hour work weeks, and you're still selling, I wasn't even selling a lot of homes compared to like a lot of people. I was 40, 50 homes a year when I was transitioning out. But I hear Matt Roack, who I just met with, I think said he was 180 homes before he started growing the team. So like, there's people doing some crazy things out there and mixing it in. That's really the key. It's hard work. You're gonna bust your ass. It's gonna suck.
I feel like thinking about it is painful.
Talk to us a little bit more about the attrition, right? Like, one of the biggest things that I think people recognize about your team is that when agents come there, they're staying there for a while and they're not leaving. What are some of the reasons you think those agents have been with you for so long?
I think that a lot of people are leading teams with the wrong intentions. And I think that a lot of people need to understand too, like, are you either going to be a team that, is a producing agent where the agents around them support them and they're essentially more of like an assistant kind of thing? Or do you want to grow a large team and then get out of production and like really help, like, kind of more my style team? And either one is completely fine. But what I found is that what's really helped me is that my whole, like, everything that I do and everything that the agents feel throughout the organization is that we operate with integrity. We do what we say we're going to do. We use each other for accountability for that integrity. We don't screw each other over. I hate to say it, but there's been conflict within, agents within the team or something around splits because they didn't clearly negotiate up front. And I personally will take that on the chin versus having conflict in between the two of them, and we'll move forward from there. So I think that a lot of things like that, you take like an old school real estate agency, for instance, that they'll just go in and like kill their agents over $4,000. Like, they'll literally, it's interesting to me. So it doesn't come up often, but it's just things like that. And then we bring in the right people so that it creates that culture, that vibe of, more of the racehorses on that side of things, and just genuine people. And we've just been really fortunate to just have a great group of people. But I do focus in on that. And what I will say too is, we try to push the agents to invite their friends or family.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of our agents are cut from the same cloth because they've come in from other, folks that are already on the team, or they recruited them in and then, got into conversation with them around that too. But yeah, that's making the right hire really helps with the attrition on that side of things. And then also, I personally left the team because I kept hitting the ceiling within the team. So we give people opportunities. We have pod leaders. We have people kind of running teams within our team where the sky's the limit. And I think that also is the issue. Like, people are so worried about my name being on something, or like you guys, Lighthouse, like that's perfect. Like having like not getting into that whole side of things. I don't claim things on the MLS. I see that too. I don't know. I apologize if you guys do, but like I know some agents that are like, you will never get a shout out. You'll never be this. You'll never be that. Everything's going in my name on the MLS. And I think that too, certainly upsets the agents and causes them to start looking elsewhere. And with me, I was the agent on the team. I was a top producer on a team. So I felt it from like that side of things. And that's really what's helped me grow this whole thing. I think of it from the top producing agent within the team. What would I want to do? Yesterday, somebody was asking me, driving around Hoboken, somebody was asking me, should I reset? I'll give a team split that'll start to increase each year. Should I reset it at the end of each year? And I was like, no. And she was like, why? And I'm like, because if you were on your team, would you want that to happen to you? I think that as long as they're still operating in the last 12 months of like whatever your standard is to be at that split, why would you ding them like that? She's like, well, EXP Realty caps. And I was like, so you're going to let that cap reset and then you're going to reset them so they're getting paid 40% less in that 1 month? That it feels awful. And EXP is a capping model because they're not taking admin staff, or you're not using admin staff 24/7 and stuff like that. That's how capping models work. Whereas if you're going full service team, our coaching goes 365 days a year. Our admin staff, is 7 days a week. Like, we're here to help you regardless. And that's why for us, that capping model hasn't worked within the team, or I haven't even explored it. That's a perfect example. I don't think if I were an agent on a team and somebody said, hey, you busted your ass, you did 22 million this year, and you were at 70%, and January 1st, you tick back to 50-50, and you got to get back up to that, I'd be like, screw you, I'm out.
Yeah. So what are some ways, obviously attrition, as we talked about, is really important. It's been hugely successful for you because you've been able to keep these people for a long time. What are some ways that people can sort of build a team within a team? Like you were talking about pod leaders, and I know you refer to the pods. Just explain that to the people out there who don't understand, myself included.
Yeah, so what we found too is if you take like mega teams or you take like massive real estate teams are blitzing and scaling, a lot of times their profit margins are between like 5 and 10, maybe 15% if you're really good at it, 20% if you're the best of the best. So what we found is that, hey, if we can give somebody a 5% override, or we can incentivize them a little bit to help, train the agents and whatnot, but they don't have the risk of their own P&L and they're working within that world, it basically gets you to what you want at the end without having the risk of it. And then also too, there's downward pressure being created from like myself, for instance, because I too want those agents to produce underneath them. So there's accountability as well. So it's kind of like, I know the agents within my world can create more profit having their override within the agents on our team with everything that's happening around them and not having to worry about guessing with expenses and whatnot, versus going out on their own, not having me backing them and looking at them and making sure that, they have that accountability, that right recruiting, that bringing the people through. And so far it's worked out, really well. We've got some good leaders in the group.
Yeah. The way you explain it too comes from a place of like, you actually care, right? Because of the fact that you had the entrepreneurial spirit, you took the risk, right? It worked out. And if the person wants to be an entrepreneur themselves, they can be an intrapreneur within your organization with the override, with none of the risk. And now you're basically saying, make as much as you want. The sky's the limit, but it's based on your effort as well, not only mine.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. Well, it's also saying too, like, hey, if you think you could build a team, build it here. What do I have to do to keep you here? I'll keep you here. I'll back you. I'll take the risk of the expenses. Mm-hmm. And, obviously it benefits someone like a Brett too, just because they're taking over some of the training and some of the questions and how do I submit this offer and what do I do when somebody asks me this and that sort of thing. So how did you expand throughout Northern and Central Jersey? I know now you said you have a team in Hoboken, or an office in Hoboken, an office in Morristown, and you're opening a new office in Red Bank. Did you go out and hire new agents in Red Bank? Is there somebody already out there that's active, that's sort of building a team out there, or a pod?
So you guys know I was Hoboken. I lived in Hoboken for 12 or 13 years. I was there for quite some time. I came in 2008. I will say too, the Hoboken office, the lease is signed. It's not legally licensed at the time of this recording, so there's nobody using the office, just in case. But we will have that license within 2 weeks or so. Just waiting to hear back from the state. The Red Bank too, that starts in March. But we started with Hoboken, and we started to pay attention to where our clients were moving. So we found that it's usually a 90-minute radius of New York City. For us, it was like that northern Monmouth County. We don't do too much in Middlesex. There is some people do purchase in New Brunswick and stuff like that from us. I'm personally from Morris County. I now live in Somerset County, and then I have agents from Essex and Bergen County as well. So that's what created it. I started watching my clients from Hoboken. Honestly, to go all the way back, I used to do a lot of rentals. So what always bothered me is I'd rent them a home, and then I'd see them buy a home but didn't want to use me because I was the rental agent. So I had to get over that. And then I'd sell them the home, and then they wouldn't want to use me because I wasn't the listing agent or something like that. And they'd go list with somebody else. So then I would get over that. And then I was selling them a home in Hoboken. And I'll use my sister as an example. My sister moved from Jersey City to Maplewood and bought in Maplewood, not using me as their realtor. I got a referral on it, but didn't feel comfortable using me as their realtor because I didn't know the Maplewood school system well enough. So I realized if my sister won't buy from me in a town 20 minutes from where I live, I'm branding myself way too hyper locally from Hoboken and Jersey City, for Hoboken, Jersey City. Fast forward 2020, I sold her home in Maplewood, and then I sold her next home. They bought a home through me in Maplewood. So point being is I went and created enough of, an image around that. And actually goes into we could talk about self-awareness and everything too, but that a lot of people will get pissed off at that idea. And it's no, I was wrong. I did something wrong that didn't give enough confidence to my sister that I was the right person for them to make that move. That's kind of how it happened. And I started sharing stories, and I don't think we had stories yet, but posting on Facebook, I'm showing a home in Randolph, that's where I'm from. And do you guys remember this neighborhood? And I started to get my clients to engage a little bit, my friends and stuff. And now it's but I have the centerfold and the Randolph hockey, thing with me in my varsity jacket holding a hockey stick and stuff, and said we were state champs in 2003 and we were state champs since, just kind of incorporating that whole thing. But that's where I decided on my territories. I'm not in Cherry Hill. I'm not in Atlantic City. I'm in areas that my clients move to, and It all starts from Hoboken.
Makes sense. So when you went back to, you said you grew up in Somerset?
I grew up in Morris. And I'm in Somerset now. Yeah.
Morris. So when you decided that, hey, we're losing clients or losing business to those areas, did you go out and seek agents in those areas? Or did you say, hey, all of a sudden now this agent's going to cover that area and sort of spread that way?
I personally, when it first started, I want to say it was 2018, 2017, I was the one just doing a lot of running around. I was the guy that was selling 40, 50 homes a year, and I was just putting a lot of miles on my car. And then that started attracting people there. And I would post, and I'll still do it. I need 3 agents in Morris County by April 1st. Who's interested? Yeah. And we're doing a lot more transactions in Morris County. Who should I be talking to?
Right.
And the client sees that too. So they're then thinking of me where right before this, my go back to hockey, my old hockey coach, shot me a message on Instagram because of something we posted about an investment property. So
Sure.
It's just creating that noise around it. But no, I've never been hyper targeted on certain realtors and stuff like that through certain areas. I just more so, actually, Matt Roack, when we were meeting earlier today, he was asking me about, why don't you do too much in the real central, Mercer, Middlesex County? And I just said, I just don't, we don't do a lot of business here, and the right realtor hasn't really shown up yet. So we kind of move around where it makes sense.
I feel like it's phases, right? Every time it takes 2 steps forward, what you need to focus on and what you're adapting to is completely different than what was in the rearview mirror, right? And establishing that foundation of having the right people in the right seats is foundational, right? To be able to grow and scale. What are some of the challenges that you're facing now, and what are some of the things that you're looking forward to being able to dominate to get to that 200 agent goal? 300.
Yeah, so
300 at 6 figures, sorry.
So one of the things that we did recently is we brought in, chief growth officer. We're thinking, like I said, with the training, we're getting a lot more corporate with the stuff that we're doing. So we have a fractional CFO, we have a fractional COO. We found that you can grab $400,000, $500,000 a year employees, but only use them for 5 or 10 hours a week. And it keeps your costs down significantly. And yet you're talking about like a blitz scale, opportunity where it could even be around raising funds or maybe going public at some point down the road or something. Like there's a lot of opportunities that arise when you have real high level thinkers sitting in a room. Let's just say I have a very good group of high level folks around me that are really helping me make those next moves. And my 2 cents is that you don't need to hire them for 40 hours a week.
Yeah, that's super smart.
You need the $50,000 to $75,000 a year people 40 hours a week.
Yep.
And what are some of the things that you guys are working on or adapting to for that goal to hit the 300 agent 6-figure?
The 2 questions that I'm talking to them about are like what the 2 problems I really want to solve are, I want to know without a doubt, I have the absolute best onboarding and training for agents in the world, like period. I think that a lot of the ones that I've been through suck. I think that there's a lot of gaps in the industry. I've been with Tom Ferry. I'm still coaching with Mike Ferry. I've been with, Bill Pipes has been my coach. I've been to Chet Black events. I've been to so many different things. And I've really identified like what the gaps are in those, in that coaching. And it's kind of, again, you guys will see my messaging on social media, but it's what happens when you leave the event, what happens next. And then the other thing too is, the agents or the team leaders, they're recruiting like all hell. Let's use the Chet Black event, for instance. And then they leave the event and they realize, I'm going to recruit like all hell. I just brought 30 people into my brokerage. Now what? Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's where we're living. And then that too will help us, with that 300 agents, because we can go in and take a team leader and say, listen, we're going to run your whole, again, if you're profiting 3% right now, if I'm talking to a team leader, which a lot of them are feeling the compression in the revenue right now with the market, I'm going to get you back up to 5%. I'm going to give you growth potential to get up to 10% profit. I'm going to take everything over. And then my organization is going to go run your agents so that you don't have to do the day-to-day, and then you can be out selling. So that's kind of like where we're living with that whole organization. And then also, if you look at Compass, for instance, or a lot of these companies that are bringing on, even EXP, let's use EXP as an example. From 2009 to 2019, they didn't have a profitable quarter. They never did. So we're so used to like being small business or being salespeople that everything that we have to do is running on profit, where you can raise investor capital with a CFO, like with the people that I'm talking about. I'm learning about a whole different game. If you look at Place, for instance, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm told that Goldman Sachs gave them $100 million. And somebody asked me this, like, if you were given $10 million, it wasn't even 100, but if you were given 10 million, what would you do? And like, that's kind of how we're playing the game right now. That's what's, a little bit different. What is the business plan? If I had $100 million, how would I use that to change the world of real estate forever?
So when you're talking about the corporate level of it, it's actually pretty smart. So number one, how do you absorb other teams quickly through onboarding and training? And how do you actually have a real business so that way you can leverage against that business to expand and grow and scale so much faster?
Correct. Because you never know. You never know when the opportunity may arise, and how do you position yourself for that like next big play if it's available?
Yeah. As weird as it is, we talked about him right in the beginning. Vanderbilt built his railroad empire doing a technique like that where he had 1 and 2s, then he leveraged it going public and then just bought out everything he can from his competitors using his systems.
Well, there's so many teams out there that are just not profitable and don't have the systems and don't have the onboarding and don't have the training. So if you focus all your time and effort on that, or the majority of your time and effort on that, and really, really get that to a great place, I think that's the obvious next step for you, is to just sort of absorb some of these teams that where either the team members realize they're not getting the training or the support, or the team leader realizes, hey, either A, don't want to do this every day, or B, I don't. They sort of submit and say, hey, these guys do it better.
Yeah. As you're going through this whole process, we shadowed Robert Slack a couple of years ago, and we were fortunate enough to have a little bit of a conversation with him. And his model that he had is very similar to what you're doing now with the pods. But he would basically get team leaders, and he would just have that whole model implemented. And he said that this works perfectly because then they're going to go crazy like hell trying to get their team going off the ground, and it works better for me, and whatever the case is. But the benefit for him is that his one lead source was Realtor.com. And that was the biggest driver of majority of his income.
$1 million a month or something.
It was insane. Yeah. And they stole $1 million from him and he got it back. But it's like he was spending so much money on that. For you, and especially in our marketplace in Jersey, the lead source needs to be a lot more diverse than anything else. What do you see that you had success with in the past? And to support a 300 6-figure agent team, how do you see that being expanded?
We were never on Zillow. We got onto Zillow in 2020. I only got onto Zillow because Kyle Whistle told me that Flex was coming to my area. So that was part of like our play there. But we were always, heavy prospecting team prior to that. You saw my guys at the Mike Ferry event and stuff like that. And I really think that, you talk about the discomfort and stuff with the agents. Like I want the agent that's going to pick up the phone. My 300 agents are not going to be the ones relying on leads from me. We have them, but the organization is super scalable, and the realtors are fantastic if they'll just focus in on that. So, I mean, we have Zillow Flex. I've done stuff with Realtor.com in the past too. We have HomeLight comes through, but like our main business, I'd say 65% of what we do, out of 200 plus million, is past client center of influence and prospecting.
Good. That's great to hear, man. And those other lead sources like HomeLight, Realtor.com and stuff, it's good if I was always taught like your lead sources should be like legs of a table, right? Mm-hmm. It should be one of the legs of the table, and you need to have 3 other legs to keep that table supported. So if they're just relying on only Zillow leads or only HomeLight leads or only leads that are given to you from your team leader, then you're not becoming a stronger agent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had people on our team who only were cherry picking Zillow leads.
Yep.
And at the end of the year, you're like, all right, well, the 10 deals that they did were all Zillow leads. I'm like, I could pay somebody probably a lower split, right? A showing agent to just go open that door and answer the Zillow phone calls.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's also, we literally just spoke with Andy, which is like almost like a perfect, where you're saying they're focusing on listings. Listings are a lot more profitable. And overall, it's like buyer side was like the loss leader. And then the listings is where the income is really generated. So you're recreating productive agents. And that's really what you're in the business of, is really creating those agents to be productive. And
John just hit the nail on the head too. Like you could just hire a showing agent to go help you with that. John's going to out follow up any agent that is just a buyer's agent because he's a prospecting based agent.
Yep.
And that's what we realized is that like if a lead got to Dan Spitz on the team or something like that and it was a buyer side, he's going to actually follow the process. He's going to work the CRM. He's going to do what he's supposed to be doing. Whereas people that just want leads don't deserve leads because they're not going to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is why they need leads.
Right.
No, that's good. Wait, real quick. One last question before we come to a close. Biggest mistake that you made that you would advise people to avoid, or red flags that you could to watch out for when growing a team and building what you built?
I would say Zillow Flex was my biggest mistake.
Okay.
Getting on it.
Yeah. Not being prepared for what came from that. So Zillow Flex created a lot of issues within the organization because we were one of the first ones to get turned on in New Jersey almost 2 years ago at this point, and they were giving us over 400 connections per month. I think we had like 480 per month. Wow. And it like blew out our ops. So we started recruiting like all hell. We were creating those agents like what you were just talking about. And then with the market slowdown, obviously, if inventory doesn't exist, traffic doesn't exist on Zillow's website, which means that the leads don't exist. So it started to slow down, and we literally got to like 25% of that. And then we could take a deep breath and kind of get back into our schedules and start to see like we just became so reactive from Zillow Flex, which now we're in a good place. But I was not prepared for, and I hear it across the country from agents too, that thing will blow you out if you're not ready for it. So certainly learned a lot from that.
So it blew you out in a way where it gave you so much at once, but obviously when the market changed, would you say that your agents were so reliant on it that you had to?
They weren't reliant on it, but it's like they weren't, if we look at our past clients and center of influence being 45% of like our total, like they were neglecting that to service the Zillow beast.
Calls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like
there's only so many hours in a day and they were just focusing on the wrong things.
It's because Zillow rides you so hard where you're like boom, 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 and you just have to keep making them happy. And now we have it under control. Like we took on, if anybody's thinking about getting on Flex, I would say like ease into it. Start with like 50 connections a month or something and then scale from there.
Are you guys still partnered with them?
Yeah, no, we love Flex. I screwed that up where like hot buyer lead connections per month with limited inventory, and that snowball effect would do to what was only like 12 agents on it. It's like 40 connections a month per agent. It's insane.
That's pretty sweet. I don't know why in my mind I'm like, did you get an ISA? And I want to ask more questions, but I guess we're tight on time. So if you could just answer that one last question, how'd you adapt?
You have a bottlenecking component to it. So it's, you know, our Zillow score dropped down, and yeah, we have, we hired an ISA team. We went to Dan Beer's ISA course with Chet Black and stuff. I could spend a whole bunch of time on that too. And now it's a blessing because we have all of those like seasoned leads too that have been in there for a while and they're still going to transact and stuff. But yeah, we had a whole ISA department. We still have an ISA department. It's local. We hire local with everybody that's going to have direct interaction with the agents. And then John, I've told you this before, and then we use VAs to support those people. So yeah, local ISAs.
Sweet,
Awesome.
man.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really do appreciate your time. If anybody wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Just get me on, Instagram or any of the social medias. It's just I think it's at Brett.Sikora. So it's my name, Brett.Sikora. Keep it simple.
Sweet, man.
Awesome, man.
Anything you want to share with the audience, something you're working on?
No, just say don't overcomplicate the simplicity of this business. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, do what you're, like, you guys know, Glenn Sanford knows, Gary Keller, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing day in and day out, regardless of where they're at in this business. And all you have to do is do that.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
That's a good point.